What I've been striving for in terms of excellence and perfection actually doesn't exist in this human life. Life on Earth is so much more complex and messy than that. And actually, when I'm constantly fighting for perfection, I'm interrupting my ability to grow, to pivot, to be messy in the learning along the way. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. Hi, guys. I am your host, Dr. Tarryn McCarthy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here. So grateful to be alive on this beautiful day. And yes, even when everything around us feels difficult, even when the world is going through really big, uncomfortable challenges, I want to celebrate today the opportunity to, despite the challenge, also feel and see and experience the good and recognize that when we do, we get to celebrate ourselves for it. Today, we're talking about how guilt and shame serves no one. Whew, this is a big topic. This is a really big topic. I was just this past week, I was listening to my daughter. She was performing and singing beautifully. I'm so proud of her. She's such an angelic voice. I could stay all day long talking on this podcast about how amazing my daughter is. And she really is. And I was listening to some feedback she was getting. She did this beautiful performance, heartfelt, incredible performance, brought me to tears. And someone else was talking to her afterwards. I was listening and she said, "Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. Have you ever thought about getting voice lessons?" And my daughter's first response was, "Oh my gosh, I know. I totally messed up this part. And I'm so stupid. I keep getting that one part wrong. I really need to work harder." She received this beautiful encouragement from someone who listened to her music as an opportunity to shame herself instead of recognize the incredible, beautiful gift she just delivered. And I saw myself in her. In that moment, I recognized, oh my gosh, all the times that I have done that to myself, where we think that in shaming ourselves, even in this case where she did an amazing job, we think that by shaming ourselves, we are staying humble or motivating ourselves. And it's so interesting that in medicine and dentistry, this shaming, it's celebrated. I am sitting here in front of you as someone who literally taught that course in dental school. I wrote the curriculum and then I taught the course on critical self-evaluation, how to be self-critical around the work that you do in dentistry. And I loved this course. So good. How to self-critique, how to self-evaluate, how to look at the work that you just did and then ask yourself, where could I improve? Can I be really good at looking at what I did and judging it, holding it to a very high standard? And when you're doing a crown prep, this is really important. When you're learning, the intricacies of the number of degrees that the walls of your prep need to be in order to have good retention of your crown, or when you're learning how to be an expert at your craft, these skills are really important. But what I noticed was that I sometimes would take that self-critiquing and expand it into the rest of my life to a point of self-shaming. And there's this idea of perfectionism that we tend to chase in dentistry and in medicine. This idea that when I hold myself to an extremely high level, an extremely high impression of excellence, that I rise to that occasion. And although there's so much value in constant growth and learning, often what happens is a level of self-shaming because there's no such thing as perfect. And when we strive for perfection in our lives and constantly fall short, the self-beratement and self-shaming that can come on the other side of that actually undermines our greater success. So let's talk about this for a moment. Why is shaming yourself one of the greatest hindrances to getting anything you want. Why is that true when we sometimes have evidence to the exact opposite? Because let's be honest here. Holding yourself to really high standards got you far. It did. Maybe holding yourself to standards of excellence and perfection is what got you through dental school. It got you through medical school. But there becomes a moment in our growth and evolution as healers, as doctors and dentists, as women, as mothers, where we realize, wow, what I've been striving for in terms of excellence and perfection actually doesn't exist in this human life. Life on earth is so much more complex and messy than that. And actually, when I'm constantly fighting for perfection, I'm interrupting my ability to grow, to pivot, to be messy in the learning along the way. Our perfectionism actually becomes a constriction, a restriction of our potential. I used to think that perfectionism was what kept me reaching for more, kept me striving, kept that high standard of care. And what I noticed the minute self-shaming stepped in was that the shaming was no longer supporting my goal of growth. It was actually doing the opposite. So there's this sinister little side effect of perfectionism, and that is self-shaming, constantly expecting perfection of yourself. And then the self-talk that lands on the other side. So just think for a moment how often you've reached for something with a goal of perfectionism or even an expectation of an outcome. Let's not even call it perfectionism, because I think so many people bristle at that. I'm like, I'm not a perfectionist. Just the goal of attaining a very specific outcome, and we expect that of ourselves. And then when it doesn't arrive, what is the voice on the other side? Is it celebratory or is it self-shaming? And is there a part of you that actually thinks that shaming yourself will get you further? I ran a whole marathon shaming myself. I mean, training for it and then running it, shaming myself. I did. I remember punishing myself every step of the way, threatening myself. Tarryn, you should be so happy to be running. When I was feeling unmotivated to get out the door, I would threaten myself and shame myself. Tarryn, there are people out there who don't have as much as you do, who don't have the privilege you have to go for a run this morning. Get up. Who are you kidding? That level of motivation we used to believe was really powerful. And maybe it worked for you. It did. It worked for me. I crossed the finish line. But here's the truth. I never ever ran a second marathon. I didn't. I've run many half marathons. I've run triathlons, but I never ran another marathon. And this is where the self-shaming undermines our potential and our capacity. Because shame at the level of your nervous system undermines self-worth and self-confidence, even if it's only happening in your own head, especially when it's happening in your own head. When the voice inside your head is threatening and punishing you for not exceeding expectations or meeting that expectation. It's usually exceeding that we expect of ourselves, isn't it? If we're to be honest with ourselves, when we set a goal, we want to see ourselves go beyond it. I mean, that's why you are a high achieving woman. That's why you're here on this podcast, because you outdo yourself every single time. And that becomes an expectation. But the self-shaming on the other side actually does the opposite in terms of your potential for success. Self-shame also becomes a mask. Oof. We become protective of ourselves. It becomes a protective mask that keeps other people from seeing the real you. It becomes a limitation to vulnerability. And there is nothing, and this is research supported, nothing that creates deeper connection between people than vulnerability. Look at Brené Brown's work. Look at the work from that 85-year-old study out of Harvard around happiness, where they showed that the one single determinant of happiness across all socioeconomic levels, across all genders, across all ages, across all education levels, deep connection with other human beings, relationship depth and quality of relationship, which directly requires vulnerability. And when you're in a place of self-shaming, that vulnerability with another human gets shut down. absolutely gets masked, gets hidden, gets forbidden. Self-shaming at the level of your nervous system makes you hide. Yes, it's a threat, and it might get you out of bed in the morning, but it doesn't feel good in the long run. And maybe now, as you're listening to this episode, you're thinking, oh my gosh, self-shaming is what my entire profession, my entire career has been predicated upon, is me pushing myself and driving myself and threatening myself. Maybe you're beginning to realize, oh my gosh, now I'm understanding why I'm so limited, why I feel like there's this plateau of my success. There's also an energetic component of this I want you to recognize. The self-shaming talk and behavior pattern and habit that you get into literally drains you of energy. And we're in a place right now, my friends. We are in an evolution of leadership that this is no longer tolerable. We need to show up energetically for ourselves every single day. That is what our teams are requiring of us. That is what our families are requiring of us. We don't get to mess around with this anymore. Whether or not you take care of yourself energetically, you fuel and refuel yourself is no longer in question. This is imperative when it comes to women leaders and women healthcare providers. You are responsible for your own energy. You are responsible for refueling yourself. Nobody else is. And this tolerance of self-shaming has to go. This has to go. We can no longer tolerate that bad treatment of ourselves. There are enough opportunities outside of ourselves to be hearing people saying negative, hurtful things to us. We have got to put an end to speaking those words of condemnation and self-beratement to ourselves. It is a requirement in order to show up for other people. I do not want to be treated by a doctor or a dentist or a chiropractor or an osteopath or a physical therapist or a massage therapist who in her own mind is self-berating and self-shaming. I need energetically that space of confidence and love and self-worth. Am I right? Imagine for a moment there are 2 women physicians, 2 doctors, 2 dentists, 2 massage therapists, 2 physical therapists, whatever iteration of the healing work that you do in your profession. I want you now to imagine these 2 women. And on the right is a woman who is constantly beating herself up. Same level of education, same level of experience, same quality of care that they deliver. They actually practice the exact same treatment. They got the same education. They offer the same treatments for their patients. Now, the woman on the right, I want you to just picture her in your mind's eye. And every day, she shames herself. She walks past the mirror and she looks and she beats herself up about how she looks and the wrinkles in her skin and the shape of her body and the color and the vibrancy of her hair and the clothes that she's wearing. And as she walks past that mirror, there are those moments of shame that she keeps dropping. That same woman who every time she doesn't reach a certain goal in her business or hold a certain boundary, every time she says something that she doesn't quite feel proud of, she beats herself up. She self-berates. She tells herself how inadequate she is, how stupid she is. She tries to threaten herself to do better next time. Now on the left, I want you to picture that same woman. And this woman, what she does now is she looks in the mirror and she says, I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're doing an amazing job. When she makes a mistake, she says, babe, good job for trying. You are amazing for trying. Get back up there. It is because you try that you are doing so well. Every time she doesn't meet a goal, she goes, oh my gosh, that is amazing that you showed up for yourself this time. Good job. You're going to keep going because you are doing an amazing job. I'm so proud of you. Just notice those 2 providers. Who do you want to receive support from as a patient? Whose massage table do you want to be lying on? The one who's beating herself up or the one that is celebrating and supporting herself? And what is it about that? It is because energetically that woman gets to show up differently. That woman on the left shows up with a sense of calm, rooted groundedness, conviction, and a confidence in the work that she does. Energetically, you can feel it when she walks into the room. Oh, she's got me. She's going to take care of me. I am safe to lie in this chair with my mouth open. I am in her hands. I'm trusting she's got sharp, pointy instruments. I feel safe. Now bring the woman over who's self-berating, who's questioning herself, who's telling herself constantly, what a terrible leader, what a terrible doctor, what a terrible woman, what a terrible mother, what a terrible person she is, who's constantly looking at the beauty and the strength around her and shaming herself for it, who's shaming herself for her privilege, as opposed to the woman who is celebrating the opportunity to care for others from her place of privilege. Very different energy. And we feel that as recipients of that care. We feel that as team members. Notice now, if you are the leader of a team, how energetically you show up differently as a leader. And right now, we need these leaders who feel so solid and rooted and grounded, because that offers a sense of safety. I feel safer to follow your lead when you're coming from that place of self-celebration, of self-grace, of self-compassion, of self-understanding. We are going to make mistakes, my friends. It is who we are. We are human beings. And sometimes, let's be honest with ourselves, mistakes turn into beautiful new inventions, new opportunities, new creative pursuits. Mistakes actually are phenomenal. Messy middle is where there's new, exciting ingenuity happening. It's not when we just do the same thing, expected same thing over and over and over and over again when we see growth. No. If we just have goals and constant hitting of the goals, there's no growth. There's no stretching of our comfort zone. And stretching your comfort zone, I don't care if you're training for a marathon or you're running a dental practice, stretching your comfort zone is imperative. And we can only do that from a place of inner self-confidence and self-worth, knowing that I'm not going to beat myself up on the other side of this. Sometimes that threatening parental role that maybe you grew up with, or that threatening professor from residency, that just gets a new face and name that is our own, in our own heads. You might have left that person that was beating you up for making mistakes, but you become her. And this needs to stop because it isn't serving anyone. It doesn't feel good in your body. It doesn't look good in terms of your potential to up-level, to create even greater success, is even in your business or in your body or in your personal development or in your growth. But it also does not serve the people that you're here to serve. And this is a really important moment. We think that self-beratement and self-shaming is actually helping the people around us, but it isn't. It's hurting them. It's robbing them of the opportunity of you being at your best, your team and your patients and your children. So let's recognize now the shame hurt, the hurt that self-shaming is actually doing to you. So what can you do about it? It's about starting a new practice. It's about starting a new habit. Every time you notice, and this is a really important thing, that notice piece, because awareness is the superpower. Self-awareness is the superpower. When you can become aware of, oh my gosh, I just said that thing that is shaming me, even if it was in your own head, especially when it was in your own head. That moment, we get to shift the language. And how can you be so much more self-compassionate, self-loving? How can you offer a sense of self-cheerleading instead of self-shaming? And maybe you've heard this before, and maybe you've known this for a while, and bravo. Then you're hearing this message today as a reminder. Let's connect back into that intention. I am intending from this day forward to self-celebrate and no longer self-shame, because there is no such thing as perfection. But there is such a thing as future growth. There is such a thing as striving to every day grow and offer more support for the world around us and love myself more. Because when I feel good, I can do good. That's the foundation of what we talk about here at the Business of Happiness. And feeling good starts with that language inside your own head. So I invite you, as you go forward in this next week, Pay attention again to the words and the language and the energy that you are feeding yourself, because this is no longer an option. Now we start shifting this. The world is asking this of us in order for us to step into those leadership positions, in order for us to take back our agency. It is a requirement, and you are so capable. So thank you again for all that you do. Thank you for caring so much for the world around you. And now, thank you for making today's promise to yourself to take better care of you. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.